Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hello friends, in the previous lecture we talked about listening skills as one of the ingredients of soft skills, and if you have listened to me well, you remember I focused on the need of a specific kind of listening. I hope you are listening to me, but then what is this specific kind of listening? And in this lecture, we are going to talk about the different types of listening and how different types of listening help, and what are the various situations where these listening skills help you. Now, initially there can be three types of listening. The first is a combative listening. Now, this listening, as the word goes, it is just to listen, but while listening you combat also, meaning thereby you are not listening to, but you are listening to with a protest. And when you listen to with a protest, what happens? Because the element of protest is more in your mind, listening as a process suffers, you are not able to listen properly. Another is attentive listening. You are listening to each and every word, you are paying equal attention and you are listening to throughout. But when you are listening to throughout, naturally you give rest to your interpretations. And the third is a reflective listening, which is the most important of all forms of listening, because in this listening what you do is you not only listen, rather you analyze also, and you analyze in order that you can relate it and you can make yourself knowledgeable with this sort of listening. This is called reflective listening. There can be other forms of listening also. As I said, most of the time, most of us as students listen to the lectures in the classroom, but when you go to the workplace, you have to listen to different sorts of people in different situations and also on different problems. And in all these situations, listening differs. Because when there is a meeting, the meeting is called with a purpose, and when you go there to attend the meeting, you are to listen very carefully. Sometimes a new policy, as I said earlier, is being announced, a new instruction. In organizations, communication flows both upward and downward. So, sometimes good pieces of announcement, good pieces of notices, they actually are circulated from the top to the bottom, and they may not come always in the written form. Instructions may sometimes also come verbally, they may also come orally. So, when you have been called by your boss with a particular purpose to take some notes, you have to listen, and when you listen intently, this is called content listening. Here, with this listening, whatever your boss or whatever your leader or whatever the chairperson says, you listen it, because it has either to be disseminated to the other people or it has to have some other official purpose. So, this comes in the form of content. There is another form of listening which is empathetic listening. Now, If we work in an organization, we are not every time happy. Sometimes we are undergoing certain stresses. As leaders, you may also come across such a situation where you have to listen to a particular problem of an individual. Moreover, as a person who is going to pass that information, because if the boss does not hear his problems or listen to his problems, perhaps he may feel disenchanted. The employee may feel disgruntled, he may be dissatisfied, because organizations are just like a family. We are all the family members, and during hours of crisis, not only the crisis in general, not only the problems in general, not only the official, but sometimes we may have personal problems also, and for that we usually go to share it with our bosses or our dear or near ones. So, in such a situation, a person actually wants to unburden, or he wants something to be relieved of, and this actually requires a sort of empathetic listening, where you feel, where you actually not only you share his thoughts, but at times you may also give him a suggestion, a piece of advice, and that not only softens him, but at the same time that smooths him to an extent that he feels motivated. So, this is called empathetic listening. Then comes appreciative listening. You have read a very significant paper in a conference, or you have a very significant idea. Most of the youngsters these days, they come up with bubbling, innovative new ideas, and they want that they should have somebody to listen to them. Say for example, nowadays with the help of communication facilities around, and with the sort of sharing facility also, if a new idea comes to us, say for example the solution to a problem, you want that there should be people who not only should listen to it, but then they should also appreciate. You will find if somebody is a very good singer, he actually wants people to appreciate him. In the same way, if somebody has evolved a new policy, if somebody has come across a new mechanism, he actually wants that he should be appreciated, and for that we require a sort of appreciative listening. This actually helps. And then we have analytical listening, where you listen to a person and after listening to it you analyze. You will often find if there is a crisis in the organization, if there is a problem in an institution, then we try to listen to several parties, the affected parties. I mean, if you listen only to the one party, naturally you cannot take a decision. Moreover, you may also be biased. That is why what as a leader you do is you actually try to listen to both the parties. Say there is a dispute between two people, there is a confusion between two people, and somebody has to take a serious role in it in order that this conflict is resolved, this sort of crisis has a way out. In that case, you analyze by listening to both the parties. Moreover, there are many situations where either you are trying to negotiate, there also you have to be a very good listener. You have to look at the pros and cons of what has been said by one party or the other party when you invite a bid or when you call several people. So, all these forms of listening, as I said, you actually require a specific kind of listening for a specific purpose. We cannot apply, suppose somebody talks about a problem and you simply start analyzing and you are not in a position to come to a solution, that will not be appreciated. You have to enact different roles, both as a speaker as well as a listener, because your employees are your family members, and you need to give ear to whatever is being said. So, these are the different forms of listening, but sometimes we start listening with a prejudice. That is what happens. Most of us, as I said in the previous lecture, we actually want to listen what interests us. That we cannot say is a proper way of listening. But then we are at times prejudiced, and when you are prejudiced, we can come across this situation and observation. If we hear something that opposes our most deeply rooted prejudices. For example, if the boss says, Mr. X, the propositions or the project that you have written, it actually it is a very early project, or moreover it is actually a sort of exaggerated one where the estimate has not been properly regulated by taking into consideration the various pros and cons of the situation. Now, in such a situation, what will happen? The person, the person who has given this project, he will feel either way, either the boss is prejudiced or the person who has given the project is prejudiced. So, something that opposes our most deeply rooted prejudice, somebody criticizing your color of skin, somebody saying something about your dress, even if in the form of an advice, notion, conviction, because many of us have some hard convictions, some rigid ideas, mores, cultures, complexes. Our brains may become overstimulated and not in a direction that leads to good listening. If in the very first instance somebody says that it appears to me a very hasty argument, naturally you will not be listening, or he is not in a position to listen, so it will affect listening. Maybe that in the project you have hinted at something which can be very rational even, but at the same time, because the person is biased and not able to listen to you, the entire project appears to you nothing but meaningless. We mentally plan to rebuttal what we hear. Sometimes we also, because sometimes if you are opposed, so you at the same time you start rebutting, no? You start opposing even what has been said, or formulate a question designed to embarrass the talker. If just in the beginning somebody said something which you feel is in the form of an opposition, what you do is you raise a question which may be very embarrassing, or perhaps simply turn to thoughts and support our feelings on the subject at hand. This sort of listening is a prejudiced listening, and nothing can come out of it. Listening in such a situation is threatened, and listening cannot take shape. Now, what are the different situations for which we should prepare ourselves either to be a good listener, and how that are going to benefit us? First is conversation. You may often wonder why all of us are not good conversationalists, because we somewhere or the other lack in the power of listening. A good conversation is only one where both the speaker and the listener, they actually come to a sort of symphony, they come to a sort of agreement. So, a good conversation can take place only when we listen to the other party. You will often find somebody saying something and you do not listen to him properly. After some time the talk comes to a halt, the talk comes to a stop. That is why, as I said in the previous lecture, not all of us are good at having a conversation. That is why on majority of occasions our train journeys become very boring, because we are neither a good speaker nor a good talker nor a good conversationalist. So, a good conversation requires a good amount of patience for listening. Then nowadays you will find most of the organizations, they actually have a sort of criteria of recruiting through group discussion. Say for example, so many applications have come and so many candidates are there, but he has to scrutinize some of them. So what he does is he actually takes the help of group discussion. And remember well, listening is an essential ingredient of group discussion. A person who is not good listener cannot excel in a group discussion. On many occasions we have said that if somebody does not have anything to contribute to a group discussion, but then if he has a patience to listen, he can actually carry forward, or he can by opposing or by supposing continue his being in the group discussion. So if we are not able to hear what other people say in the group discussion, naturally we cannot have the group discussion continue for a long time. So listening is important in group discussion, and one important part of listening is it is with the help of your listening power that you are often being, or you often come out as a leader, because you listened to. Every person in the group discussion should be given an opportunity, and every person in the group discussion has to speak, and even a person who is inert, even a person who does not have any idea and runs sort of idea can do well if he listens to others' point of view. Then comes the organizational activities. You will find that there are many people among us who do not take part in any organizational activity only because he feels he will have to listen to others. But remember, the success of an activity, the success of an event can result only when there is a proper coordination, and this coordination will come up only when we listen to each other. Remember, for different occasions you will have to listen, and not only listen, but after listening you may also at times have to take an action. There is no need of a person who simply says that he listens to, but when he is asked about what did he listen, he simply is at a cross. So such listening is not welcome. Moreover, it is also very important, if you are trying to carve a deal, if you are trying to have a deal, it is very important for you to be a good listener. You can always negotiate, we will have a full talk on negotiation, and there we will focus how listening plays a very important role in negotiation. Unless and until you hear, because once you listen you also think of the consequences, and so listening becomes very important. Moreover, another significant part of listening, every day we watch during interviews. A very enthusiastic or overexcited person, if he does not listen to the question in totality, question put by the interviewer, he is in a position to answer it wrongly. As youngsters, you will also find amongst yourself that before the interviewer has completed his question, since you know the answer, what you do is you jump to the answer. But do you really know that the other part of the question can be embarrassing? So if you have not learned the art of proper listening, you may actually err, you may actually commit a mistake. An interview is one of the best ways to judge what you have listened and how you have made others listen. And then meeting is a very common ingredient. Most of the successful meetings, they are successful because of the listening activity. Throughout, people listen and they pay attention to what is being said. During listening, it is also important that we do not give importance to whisperings or parallel talks. It has also been observed that during group discussions, at times and in meetings, there are people who start a parallel conversation. That conversation is not required because that will destroy the atmosphere of listening, and it may be difficult for other people to concentrate on the agenda of the meeting. What are the factors that can affect listening in such situations? The first is the external factors. You know, I am delivering a lecture from this room, and I feel that this is very cordial because no noise disturbs me, and the venue is also so intimate. I am here only, I speak, and I am not being interrupted by anyone. I here maintain a sort of space where I can play my part well, and the time has also been taken into consideration so that I can deliver my talk well, and I have given ample space, and I feel that I have a status. I am talking to you all, though invisibly enough. I cannot see you, you can see me, but yet you are listening, my dear friend. So that is actually the beauty, and that is the magic and the charisma of listening. And this effective listening depends upon that there should be no noise. You will often find people complaining, there is too much of noise in the room adjacent to me, I cannot hear anything, I cannot concentrate on my work. That is why you will find most of the educational institutions, they are situated on the outskirts, they are situated in isolated places, because the educational activity goes on with the help of listening, with the help of sharing, where there should not be external disturbances. So listening takes place in an atmosphere where you have peace prevailing in from all sides, no noise. Venue is very important, I am in place. So whenever a meeting is decided, it is seen that the place is beautiful, not only beautiful, rather the place has all sorts of attraction, and it is free from the madding crowd. And the time is also very important. We cannot listen everything at odd hours. That is why when a meeting is fixed, the time of the meeting is decided, a time which suits everyone, a time where nobody can have any problem, and then the culture is also very important. In several cultures you will find people see to it, and rather people expect that everyone should hear, everyone should speak, everyone should listen, and that is how listening may be affected externally because of these factors, mainly the noise, which when you are having a very serious discussion, noise may interrupt, and that is why while selection of the venue and the time, we have to take into consideration how it affects. Now there are internal factors also when listening is at a loss. And what are these internal factors? State of mind. Suppose you are preoccupied, even in a meeting you are preoccupied. As I said in the previous talk on meta communication, that sometimes we try to hide our expressions, we try to hide our reactions, and that is why, that is only because of the state of mind. Maybe we are not in a position to speak, maybe we are not in a position to contribute, maybe we are not in an emotional state to say anything, or maybe because we are distracted, whatever is being said is not heard because I have already blocked myself, I have already closed my mind. So state of the mind is also very important. It plays a serious role in effective listening. Ego, this is really a disease which is incurable. You know, most of us rather, you know, if my colleague gets a position from where he can address me, what happens? We think, how should he address me? Because I have a bloated ego, I should not listen to him. So when you go to listen and you have the ego problem, naturally it will affect listening. Moreover, the language. If a person speaks English, or say for that matter some other language, or he uses references from other languages, or he uses words which the listeners do not know, listening comes to a halt, to a grinding halt rather, listening does not take place. And then the way you react to and the way others react to in situations, there are different perceptions. So when we have different perceptions, once again we do not want to listen. So listening is affected not only by external factors, rather they are also affected by internal factors. And we cannot listen unless and until we are free from ego classes, we are free from clone thoughts, we are free from becoming rigid categories, we are free from ambiguity. Naturally, listening cannot take place. In order that we listen intently and we want to utilize listening as listening in its true word and spirit, the first is we should try to concentrate on the speaker. You see, in the very instance, there are some people who judge the speaker. But then, as I said, you should not judge the speaker on the basis of his appearance, rather the speaker should be judged on the basis of his thoughts. And how can we understand his thoughts? Only when we concentrate on the speaker. So, first thing is concentrate on the speaker, look at him, pay attention and look at him in such a manner that it appears quite natural, quite congenital, not imposing. And even when you give a glance, the glance should have a welcome signal and it should suggest that you have come there to learn, you have gone there to gather some information. And when you listen to the speaker, because in order to be a good listener and in order to remember things, many of us go to a meeting or to a talk with some pen and paper. So, while you go there, please see that you can jot down some of the important parts of what the speaker says. But remember, while you are jotting, but then in course of jotting, you are listening also. I mean, listening and jotting down, these two activities, these two actions should take place together. So, when you are doing that, you are also summarizing the views of the speaker, summarizing not by showing them, but summarizing in your mind. But remember, if you have a doubt, no, it is not a good way to interrupt the speaker and say your viewpoints or express your viewpoints. Rather, while you are jotting down, jot it down in such a manner that after the talk or the lecture is over, you can ask him, you can seek replies in a very polite manner. Jot down the points which are relevant and then relate the problem with your knowledge. If you do it very honestly, you will find that you have really learned something and you have ensured a proper listening, because on majority of occasions we prejudge the speaker and we do not listen, and afterwards when somebody says, "Oh, what a marvelous lecture it was," you feel like regretting because you judged the speaker only in the first instance and you could not listen to him. Now, we have been speaking a lot over listening in these two lectures. Now, you should also, or you would like to know, what can be some tricks or some tips in order to have an effective listening. The first is be generous. Now, when you go to deliver a lecture, the first thing is you have a topic in your mind, but always think that the speaker who has come a long way will give you some new ideas. The speaker will have some innovative ideas to share, and that is possible only when you go with an open mind. Most of us go there to listen with a biased mind, with a prejudiced mind, and that is why we are not able to concentrate on listening. While concentrating on the speaker and maintaining an open mind, please show your interest, that you are very much interested in the talk. So, when you show your interest, you show it in a way which I have said, you show it in a non-verbal manner, and that will also fire the imagination and fire the thought process of the speaker. Don't judge the speaker, avoid judging the speaker, and even if you are having some sort of critical thoughts, you are having some sort of critical analysis, please continue, activate your critical thinking, but keep it to yourself, don't expose it, otherwise it will affect others listening. There are other people also who may not be having as much knowledge as you. So what you should do is, you should keep your critical thinking to yourself, but as you are jotting down, jot down the points. All these things can be done once this talk is over, once this talk is complete. Moreover, some of us have a very bad habit. If you feel that a critical thinking is going on in your mind and you suddenly start, either touching or trying to share it with the co-sitter or with the other person sitting by your side. So what happens is, this really can be taken in a different manner, and this is like disturbing. So please do not judge the speaker and do not show your critical thinking. Avoid parallel talks and don't interrupt the speaker. Sometimes you will find that this speaker, as I said in my lecture on meta communication, he is not confining his ideas only to words. Rather, he also expresses something through non-words or through non-verbals. So you should be alert to understand the language of the non-verbals being used by the speaker, because the speaker, with the help of his body movement and with the help of his non-verbal cues, tries to complement what he says, or sometimes he also tries to raise a question by the way he positions the word. Remember, you should also use the time gaps. These time gaps will appear as the breather, and when you get this breather, you can actually relate and coordinate. And remember, all sorts of speakers, there will be only few speakers who will not make use of silence and pauses. So try to unearth, try to extract the meaning of the supposed silence and the pauses that the speaker has given or has situated in the midst of his words. If you are alert, and if you listen, and if the thought process of the speaker ignites your fire or activates you, naturally you will take down precise notes, and when you do that, you will feel that the entire listening has been a sort of learning experience. Dear friends, as I have been saying, develop the habit of listening, not only for the sake of listening, but listening to learn. Listen to learn. Listen also to unlearn, because sometimes whatever we have learnt in the past, that also can be unlearned when a new piece of information, when a new piece of knowledge is on the way. And here, before I end, let me quote what the famous novelist Ernest Hemingway says: "I like to listen. I have learnt a great deal from listening carefully." And then the last lines that he says is, "Most people never listen." But I am quite hopeful, and I anticipate that all of you are very good listeners, and you will enjoy listening not only to the lectures, but you will also listen it to learn and listen it to make yourself wise enough. The need of the hour is to listen to learn. It is not important simply to hear, but it is also important that whatever you hear, you try to transport or transfer it to listening, because all listening gives you new experiences, new knowledge, and makes you a successful person in the days to come. I hope you will listen, and listen for sure. Thank you very much.